I don't consider myself a jealous person, I'll say more. I trust my wife 100%, but lately I've started noticing more and more red flags. Everything would be fine if she sat down with me with a bottle of wine and told me everything. But it seems she's too cowardly to do that. That's why I had to take an unusual path to find out the whole truth. My wife, Stephanie, seemed to think that her secret plans would remain a mystery to me. In her view, I was either too naive to recognize her affair with a colleague named Eugene, or simply resigned myself to her infidelities to preserve our marriage. She was mistaken, as I had long begun to suspect something was amiss, noticing clear signs of infidelity, late returns from work, changes in clothing style, an inclination towards new sexual experiments, and a loss of interest in shared hobbies. Despite my attempts to discuss these changes, Stephanie dismissed them, blaming my jealousy and possessive feelings. Unwilling to remain in the dark, I took a step that many might condemn. I hired a private detective. Sitting in Carlos Bernard's office, I anxiously awaited his report, which, to my relief, initially did not confirm my suspicions of infidelity. However, the "but" in his words heralded another problem, a romantic attraction between Stephanie and Eugene, which, in his opinion, could escalate into a full-blown affair at any moment. The term "work spouses" was repulsive to me. Stephanie had only one spouse, me. Bernard's report described how Stephanie and Eugene spent lunches together, unashamedly exchanging kisses or embracing tightly. Their evening overtimes seemed like an excuse to spend more time together, avoiding returning to their families. Although eavesdropping on their correspondence was illegal and inadmissible in court, I wanted to know the truth for myself. Bernard assured me that in their messages, Stephanie never mentioned me with disdain, whereas Eugene tried to disparage me, but Stephanie defended my honor. Ultimately, while they hadn't crossed the line to become full-fledged lovers, the report confirmed their romantic connection. This knowledge caused me pain, but I was prepared to act, as there was no place for tolerance of infidelity in my principles. That day, sitting in my office, I pondered my next actions after Bernard had opened my eyes to my wife's affair. The love letters between her and Eugene were extremely intimate, reaching the point of exchanging explicit photos. Eugene sent her a picture of his little friend to her delight, and she responded with shots showing her two friends below the chin, although, according to Bernard, she had yet to send more intimate photos. And so, when Eugene found out that his wife was leaving town, he saw it as the perfect opportunity to take his relationship with my wife to the next level. The obstacle in their way was me. They contemplated various ways to get around me, including the idea of a girls' night out for Stephanie, which was quickly dismissed due to the risk of exposure. Then, the suggestion to send me on golf trips with friends was also rejected, as I had no interest in it. Eventually, Eugene decided to go all in, convincing Stephanie that their affair would improve our marriage, suggesting that I could come to terms with her romancy for the sake of our union's happiness. He made her believe that it would be enough just to inform me about her intentions with him, and I would supposedly accept it. Clearly, Eugene did not know me, as I would never agree to such a thing. But the fact that Stephanie believed his words made me question her mental state. Bernard confirmed that this was all the evidence he had. I took the information he provided and went home, asking him to keep an eye on the situation and to notify me of any changes. Bernard called me on Friday to inform me that Stephanie planned to meet with me on Monday after work. Stephanie was preparing to lay her cards on the table about her upcoming date with Eugene on Friday evening. They planned to start with dinner and dancing and end the night in a hotel, indulging in passion. She thought about returning to me the next day, Saturday, or maybe even Sunday, depending on their infatuation with each other. Stephanie and Eugene meticulously worked out how she would tell me everything, convincing themselves that I would come to terms with their decision. They anticipated my dissatisfaction, possibly even anger, but Stephanie was going to convince me that this was a one-time event. They even speculated that as a reward for my understanding, Stephanie would offer me intimacy, knowing that we had not been close for a long time. She hoped that I would be satisfied with the rejected leftovers from Eugene, considering my needs. I had only a couple of days to prepare for this conversation, Stephanie, with irony calling our upcoming conversation an intervention, believed everything would go according to her plan. However, I was determined not to let that happen. I spent the weekend going through various options, contemplating the future of our marriage and whether it was worth saving at all. I needed to figure out my feelings for Stephanie and decide whether I was ready to fight for our union. After much thought, I concluded that it was time to take the bull by the horns and draw a line in our relationship, just like we did at the beginning of our marriage, when it seemed we were happy and shared everything in the world. Stephanie was my everything, my best friend and passionate love. But somehow, everything between us dissipated, as if it was incredible. Perhaps I idealized marriage too much, imagining us as an invincible team, overcoming life's difficulties together. Having already experienced a failed marriage, I wondered if the problem wasn't us, but the concept of marriage itself. In a world where everything changes rapidly, how can one expect marriage, as a phenomenon, to remain unchanged? Reflecting on Stephanie's future with Eugene, I suddenly realized that I couldn't afford to become a subject of ridicule. I might not need Stephanie, but I won't let Eugene take her without a fight. After her call on Monday afternoon, my response was decisive. "Hey, Stephanie," I began, preparing for a serious conversation. She asked to make sure I would be home on time, saying she had something important. I confirmed, adding that I also had news. After ending the call, I rushed to my boss, announcing an unexpected day off to prepare for the upcoming conversation. At 5:45, I heard her enter through the garage, my heart pounding in anticipation and anger at the same time. Maintaining outward calm, I struggled with an internal storm of feelings. An open bottle of wine with ice and 2 ready glasses stood on the table. When Stephanie entered, leaving her things on the table, I felt relieved that she came alone, without Eugene, which could have complicated the conversation. "Hello, dear," I greeted her, echoing her morning greeting. "Do you need a minute? Or shall we get straight to business?" She was puzzled by my desire to discuss the issue immediately, probably not expecting me to bring it up so quickly. I wasn't going to give her the upper hand. Her plans, I knew, were meticulously crafted, so I needed to act unpredictably. "Oh, I didn't expect you to be waiting for me, but I guess it's better now than later," Stephanie said, sitting down opposite me. "Maybe you should start. You don't mind?" she insisted, and I offered her wine. I poured for both of us and handed her a glass. She nodded in gratitude, drinking half of it immediately. "Let's get to the point," I began. "There's no sense in delaying. I need to say this." I paused, creating tension. Stephanie leaned forward, looking at me questioningly. "I want a divorce," I said directly, giving her time to process. Her reaction was immediate. First confusion, then shock, and then fear and anxiety. She was afraid I knew about her affair with Eugene. "What?" she asked, as if trying to comprehend my words. "I don't love you anymore, Stephanie. I can't remember when it happened, but I feel it's been a long time," I continued, lying, knowing exactly when my feelings had changed. "It's become harder to ignore," I finished, highlighting the difficulty of our situation. "Are you serious? What are you talking about?" she asked, her eyes filled with tears. Her reaction surprised me. "Remember how we started together when we just got married?" I began. "We were inseparable, going together to the store, movies, shopping mall. Do you remember that?" Stephanie nodded. "Of course I remember. We tried to have dinner together at least twice a week. I counted the hours until we met, to hug you, to kiss. We shared hobbies. Remember how you convinced me to take pottery classes? You know, I always loved doing that with you." "I thought you hated it." Stephanie was surprised. "No, it wasn't about pottery, but about sharing those moments with you," I replied. "I liked seeing your enthusiasm, helping you, and painting those houses for the Christmas village. We bought so many unpainted figurines and painted them together. It was tiresome, but so much fun." "Yes, yours always turned out better," Stephanie said. "How many evenings we spent painting, sitting at this table. I loved you so much then. And then, remember how we painted those large posters from Myrtle Beach? We still have hundreds of colored pictures, although, like our love, they seem to have dried out. Stephanie flinched. My love hasn't dried out, she quickly retorted. I continued. I always told our friends how they envied us. We walked together, went shopping. If you needed something from the store, I went with you. But you were always busy with your phone and didn't pay attention to me in the store, she recalled. Indeed, but I didn't care what you would choose. I wanted to be with you. I could have just stayed at home and watched sports, I confessed. We talked about how the neighbors gather together and you didn't want to go. Do you remember why? Stephanie was silent, as if recalling every moment of our life together. Every action that once seemed mundane to her now took on new significance. Stephanie dabbed the tears on her face. Remember, you said you preferred spending time with me rather than at parties with friends? On those nights, we often sat cuddled under a blanket, rewatching 3 meters above the sky. I love that movie so much, she said, trying to hold back her tears. We must have seen it hundreds of times, I noted, pouring her more wine. And I still want to watch it with you, she exclaimed. I don't want a divorce. I dreamed that we would grow old together, cooking, dancing, or just reading books in bed. It was important to be close to each other. Stephanie, I myself don't understand when everything went wrong, I confessed, looking into her eyes. We went from having our regular lunches together to once a week, and one day you said you couldn't leave the office that often anymore, which turned out to be untrue. You continued to have lunch with someone else, and then we stopped seeing each other at lunch altogether. I started having lunch with colleagues, finding that I enjoyed their company, maybe even too much, she said. I didn't want to blame you, Stephanie, or make you justify yourself. I wasn't looking for a fight, but then, coming home early to spend time together also stopped being a priority. We stayed at work longer and felt alienated at home, I said. Why did you never talk about this? Stephanie asked. If I had known it was so important to you, I would have tried to change. You're right, I agreed, although I had raised this issue more than once. I wish I could understand why being with me stopped being important to you. Maybe then I could change something in myself to make you want to spend more time with me. It seems I couldn't achieve that, I said. It might seem that I was taking the blame for our distance, though that was far from the truth. I realized that if Stephanie, Eugene, and I got into a conversation, it would not end peacefully. Stephanie would never accept my point of view, automatically labeling me as jealous, trying to control her. Before I laid my cards on the table, I wanted her to realize how her actions had affected our connection. Over time, we began to live almost separately. She went to parties and I went to poker. She spent weekends at the spa, I at golf. We could go days without talking about anything other than the weather or news. Our intimate life also suffered. Often we were too tired or not in the mood. Yet at the beginning of our marriage, we were inseparable, making love several times a day. Stephanie, do you remember how we skipped dinners to make love all night? We didn't even turn on the whirlpool bath for a year. I thought you didn't need it anymore, I began. Stephanie replied, Where did you get the idea that I don't want sex? You came up with that excuse to blame me. With sarcasm, I said, I've always wanted sex, just like 10 years ago. It's just that your desire left much to be desired. You thought I didn't want you, but in reality, I just lost interest in you as a partner. You were like ice, nothing new or even slightly daring. You wanted it all to be over quickly to get back to your own things. Do you really think so? Stephanie asked with anxiety in her voice, clearly not expecting such a turn. Yes, sex became a routine for us. You didn't even try to please me. The last time I pretended to finish just to end it sooner, I continued. Stephanie was shocked. Are you saying you faked it? But you... No, you're mistaken. You insisted on condoms even knowing I might not finish as quickly. You said it would be easier for you. I finished, showing how far apart we had drifted in our expectations and desires. I explained to you that I don't like using condoms, but you insisted that we always use them. So it wasn't hard for me to pretend. I just acted as if I was using them, accompanying the process with a soft moan. Then it seemed like I threw them away, leaving them empty, I said. I would have found masturbation more enjoyable than being with you, she exclaimed, seemingly struck by the thought that I wasn't enjoying our intimate moments. I was pleased that my plan had worked. "I'm sorry, Stephanie," I said, as if trampling her feelings even deeper. "The problem is with me, not you." Her gaze froze on me, tears stopped rolling, and her face turned red. From anger, disappointment, or shame, it was hard to tell. I poured her some wine, and she took a deep gulp. "It was only a matter of time," I continued, suggesting that we both were looking for someone else, not clarifying that I meant not myself. Suddenly, she burst out, "Are you cheating on me? Fallen in love with someone else?" I quickly responded, "Stephanie, you know my stance on cheating. I made you a promise when we got married, and I'm faithful to that promise. Just as you wouldn't betray me, I can't do that either." Her apologies were full of embarrassment. She couldn't look me in the eye. Her hands were trembling. "We decided to wait with sex until the divorce," I stated, mentioning a new object of my affections. "I already have the divorce papers from the lawyer, which will be served to you on Friday." Her reaction to this announcement was full of distrust and anger. "Divorce papers? On Friday?" she repeated, not hiding her outrage. I tried to remain calm and not smile at her words. In the end, it's for the best, since we both can find our freedom and pursue what we truly desire. "Can we really admit that the last 10 years have been a waste of time and just move on?" I said. "It wasn't a waste of time for me," she sharply replied. "Listen, Stephanie, I've thought this through. You've said yourself that this is what you want. Let's be honest, you haven't seen me as a life partner for a long time. Our marriage was a mistake. You deserve someone better, not me," I continued. "But I don't want a divorce. I want to stay with you forever. I love you," she claimed. "I'm sorry, Stephanie, but my feelings have changed. It's not the end of the world. We can split everything evenly, fairly," I explained. I suggested dividing our assets in half, without going into the details of legal proceedings, unless it becomes necessary to prove infidelity, which neither of us had done. "I'd like you to come to the bank with me tomorrow so we can split our finances and start over on a clean slate," I proposed. She was bewildered by such a rapid turn of events. "Wait, you're moving too fast. I don't know what to do," she said between tears. "Don't worry, I've already packed my things. From today, I will be living in a hotel and you can stay here until we sell the house," I reassured her. Her voice trembled as she tried to stop me, but I insisted that we resolve everything as soon as possible. "Why is it so important to do this by Friday?" she persistently asked. "Because you have a date with Eugene on Friday, right? Planning to spend the night together," I said bluntly, causing her to freeze in shock. Her face showed utter confusion as I laid out the evidence of her infidelity, prepared by a private detective in front of her. I brought up her plans to spend the evening with Eugene, referring to a reservation at the Gaylord Texan Hotel for Friday. "This isn't what you think," she began, but I didn't let her finish. "Doesn't it look like it?" "What about the photos of you and Eugene kissing?" I asked, seeing her tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and I replied with irony in my voice. "I stopped loving you the moment I found out about your plan. You wanted to make me a cuckold, just like my first ex-wife." She attempted to justify herself, claiming it was just a game to spice up our relationship. "Eugene assured me it would excite you," she said. I responded with sarcasm. "Right. Instead of being with me, you chose to spend time with another. Interesting logic." She tried to convince me, saying it was all for me, to make me happy. "I wanted you to be happy with me, not with someone else. How could you think I would accept infidelity?" I asked. She looked for excuses, asserting that it wouldn't have been considered cheating if I had consented. "Not for anything in the world," was my reply. She admitted she was wrong, acknowledging her loneliness and boredom as the reasons for her actions. "How could you feel lonely when we were together?" I didn't understand. She tried to explain, but I pointed out that her feeling of loneliness stemmed from her own actions when she distanced herself from our communication, preferring Eugene's company. "I'm not sure it was my decision," she said, avoiding my gaze, doubting her own words. "I can't believe I could do such a thing. You stopped showing up for lunches with me. Remember how you explained it with your busyness. And that time I came for you and you didn't even come out to me, just sent a message that I should have lunch alone. After that day, I never came again and you never mentioned our lunches. It seems you didn't even notice losing me, so engrossed were you in your affairs and in Eugene. Now apparently, Eugene is yours, I said. But I don't need him, she replied, meeting my gaze. I need you. We need to get back what we had before. Sorry, I was wrong. I gave up on us, she confessed, but it was already too late. You don't mean it's all over? I didn't cheat on you. We didn't do anything with Eugene. I won't see him anymore, I promise. I'll leave my job, find another place. Please, I don't want to lose you. I still love you, she pleaded. I cheated on you in everything but the most important thing. We didn't sleep together. I was foolish to let Eugene distract me, but I loved only you. I thought I could distract myself with him and come back to you, but now everything has changed. Eugene means nothing to me. Please don't leave me, she begged. It's not that simple, Stephanie. Why do you think we can't just forget about this and start over? You stopped this before it went too far, I cut in. But I've already gone too far. Sex would have been the last straw. We were just friends, she exclaimed. You were supposed to be my best friend, not his. I have many friends, but I never allowed them to take your place. I didn't spend time with them like I did with you, and certainly didn't plan anything like this with them, I countered. Stephanie cried, covering her face with her hands. I will never let you feel unimportant or taken for granted again. Can we just consider this a big mistake? Can't you forgive me? You can't just ask for a second chance as if it's a game of Monopoly and you have a get-out-of-jail-free card, I began. You didn't just make a mistake. You betrayed our love by giving your feelings to another. But you always owned my heart. I never gave it to him, she parried. And you were going to give him your body and I didn't even try to stop you. It means you didn't love me enough to fight for us. You were everything to me. I would have defended you against anyone, could have even died for you. Now, even if you were on fire, I wouldn't throw water on you, I continued. Stephanie emitted a sound akin to a whale's cry, grabbed my hands, and tried to pull me closer. Please, say you're not serious. I'm so sorry, you have to believe me, she pleaded. I believe you're sorry. It shows you're not completely selfish and heartless. But please don't make me give you another chance. I'm not rejecting you, Stephanie. You broke everything yourself. Maybe someday I can forgive you, but our feelings are gone. It's all over. You can always find solace with Eugene, I said coldly. Eugene is married, she sobbed. He just wanted to use me. He wasn't looking for a relationship. I smiled. Well, now he might reconsider. I'm sure his wife will have a lot to say to him tonight. Besides, we both use the same divorce lawyer, I added, watching her reaction. I passed her a brown paper folder across the table, which contained a full report from the detective, including photographs, and informed her that Eugene's wife also had a copy. This folder contained all the necessary information about our upcoming divorce and the property division proposal from my lawyer. Read this carefully, I suggested to her. She looked at me pleadingly. Please don't do this. If you still want to go to the bank with me tomorrow, just call. After those words, I stood up and left the house, leaving behind the sounds of her crying. Stephanie struggled with the decision to divorce. I didn't want to drag out the process or increase its cost, so I agreed to the judge's proposal to undergo family counseling. To our surprise, it actually helped. We openly shared our feelings. Stephanie realized how she had been a victim of Eugene and almost lost me. I explained to her my pain and humiliation. Our progress amazed the consultant. Returning home, our intimacy was restored, and we experienced several passionate moments of reunion. Stephanie became open to all my desires, even suggesting inviting a friend for a threesome. Although I never accepted her offer, the thought itself meant something to me. Over time, we became the loving couple we were at the start of our relationship. Stephanie took a job at my company, and we began to spend more time together, not out of duty, but from a desire to be close to each other. We resumed our shared hobbies, including painting and pottery, and even signed up for ballroom dancing classes. One evening, as we were watching a movie and cuddling, Stephanie kissed me gratefully for the second chance. In response, I said that's what you do when you love someone. Suddenly, she seriously said that we were going to have a baby. This news brought excitement and joy, promising us a happy future together.
That's the end of the story. Write your opinion in the comments about this story. It will be interesting for us to read it. Also, do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new, equally interesting and exciting stories. Good luck!